All right, there we are. I was having some technical problems before the show, and I was trying to get it straight. I got my friend, my guy in the building. I gotta bring him in, man. It's been a long time coming. The incomparable Carl Za. How is it going, my friend?
Hi, Rasheed. Good morning, good evening. How are you?
Uh, I'm doing pretty good, Carl. I'm glad to have you back, man. I know that you were recovering, and we sent me and my family. We sent out our best wishes for you behind the scenes. People don't realize I respect Carl in such a way that behind the cameras we communicate with each other. So, Carl, you see what's taking place around the globe, especially in Palestine and in that region. What do you think everything is building up to? Because what we're looking at is unhinged, spoiled child with his spoiled parents lashing out at everybody because they no longer have the economic, the military, or the political muscle to force their dictates on everybody.
Yeah, first of all, I want to point out, right now, based on what we have seen, what we observed so far, immediately after the death of Hamas leader Sinwar, you are seeing all the Western leaders lining up, from Biden to Chancellor of Germany to President of France. They're all coming out to congratulate Israel. And there's a coordinated media campaign in Washington Post, in New York Times, all but gloating about the assassination of the Hamas leader, Sinwar. And I think this further confirms that, it's not Israel that's hijacked. It's not simply as Israel hijacked U.S. foreign policy and to just get Netanyahu to remain in power. Of course, that's what Netanyahu wants. What Netanyahu wants is to perpetuate the war so he can place a wartime leader of Israel. But at the same time, it's clear as day now, United States is fully committed to encourage Israel and plan the whole op, because they have, on every step of the way, they are being fully support of Israeli atrocity in the Middle East. It's not as simple as, the Israeli lobby is so powerful they took over United States. No. This is U.S. willy-nilly entering this arrangement because Israel and United States is one entity. There's no tail wagging the dog. It's one animal. It's one dog, and Israel is playing the role as the tip of U.S. spear to continue to destabilize the Middle East. This is to serve a purpose for U.S. foreign policy, to cower all the other Arab states in the region. Like you see what we did to Gaza, you see what we did to Hezbollah, we did to Lebanon. Anyone who will stand up to us, we will destroy them and pulverize them, and that could be you. Sinwar and Nasrallah today could be you tomorrow. This is the message the United States is sending to all the other states in the region, and all the Muslim majority states. Don't you dare to stand up to us. And this is also happening at the time when U.S. itself is becoming increasingly self-sufficient in energy supply. U.S. is no longer depend on Middle East oil. What little oil, gas U.S. do import is coming from Canada, some of them even from Venezuela. So U.S. right now have a total free hand to destabilize the Middle East, because now China is more dependent on oil flow from the Gulf region. So in a way, it's also to send a signal to China. You know what? We can really seriously mess up your energy supply by destabilizing the Middle East, by having a war over there. This is why all these U.S. Aircraft carrier attack groups were parking outside of the Gulf of Oman. One part is to intimidate Iran from retaliating against Israel. By the way, remember what I said in my last appearance on your show, which is a long time ago? I said people just need to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Iran, they're playing the long game. They have strategic patience, and they, you know, we all know Iran will have to strike back at Israel, but they will not do it at their enemy's timing. You know, this is what the art of war, Sun Tzu has said in the art of war. You don't want to fight on the battleground of your enemy's choosing and timing of your enemy choosing. You choose your own battle. You choose the time. You choose to use the right place. That's give you maximum advantage. And the Iranian missile attack against Israel has shown that the Iron Dome is ineffective against ballistic missiles. I mean, Iron Dome is designed to stop some rockets motors, but they're not really effective to stop ballistic missiles travel at supersonic speed. And this is also why US has moved that system to Israel. And if so for people who don't know, that system is this the US system for missile defense. They're basically admitting the Iron Dome doesn't work against incoming ballistic missile, either from Iran or from Yemen. That's why they had all these US ships lining up, acting as a shield for Israel. And on top of that, they're moving that system into Israel. Now, the thing is, we don't really know how that system works in a real war scenario. So if I am Russia or China, you know, I would have a very vested interest to probe this system and to find out, because 10 years ago, US already deployed that system in Korea. And that was obviously to target
Mm-hmm.
China, to target missiles
Mm-hmm.
coming out of China. So if I am Russia or China, I would be very curious to see what are the capabilities of that system. And what a better way to find out is, you know, give some help, give some technical help, you know, on the way to Iran. And so this the axis of resistance is low. I mean, it's by no means has been crushed. You know, like so what they killed. I mean, okay, we have to admit that the loss of Hezbollah leader is a big blow. It's a big
Mm-hmm.
blow both organizationally and in terms of morale. But this has all happened before. Hezbollah will have no problem finding another leader who will be even more hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Nasrallah, who they killed, he's a moderate. He
Mm-hmm.
was he was arguing for strategic patience. He was arguing for moderation because he had to. He also had to concern for the livelihood of Lebanese people. You know, the Hezbollah wasn't about to throw all the lives of Lebanese people away to come from Israel, but now time have changed. Now Israel is bringing war to Lebanon. There's no longer a choice of when it comes to resistance, and they are not. They can kill one man, but the movement, either Hezbollah or Hamas, was never built around one personality or one man. They will rebuild. They will regroup, and 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 and, and I have to say something about the deaths of Sinwar, because Israel, they thought it was a good idea to post entire footage of Singwar's last moment, and they're gloating about it. But what they don't realize, they just created the best PR campaign for Hamas, for Sinwar, because
Yes, sir.
everyone outside of Israel can see Sinwar died as a man. He died a warrior's death. This man was shot at by tank shells, got his right arm blown off. So but the Israeli were still scared to send in infantry to get him, so they sent a drone. And when the drone flew in, Sinwar used his last remaining arm, his left arm, grab a stick and use his last remaining strength to toss a stick at the drone. So for Israeli, they thought this was good. Oh, this is good. This is good propaganda. Look, we got him good. But the problem is the Israeli propaganda right now is geared toward domestic consumption, toward Israeli audience. And at this
Mm-hmm.
point, we have to admit the majority of Israelis right now, they're out for blood. Since October 7th, they're out for blood and for vengeance against the Palestinian people. And when they saw this, oh, what a humiliation for the Palestinians, what a humiliation for the Hamas. And they have absolutely no self-awareness of what the impact of the video does to the global audience, because they don't have, I mean, let's be frank. Israel is a Western society built in Middle East.
Yes.
It's full of Western culture, and so people who raise in the Western culture, they don't understand the culture of martyrdom. They don't understand the respect people pay to martyrs in other cultures. They just made Sinwar even a larger hero than he already is. This is kind of the legend. Now they elevated him to the legendary status, and this is why also why we see Israel tweet out all kind of porn, war porn, and tweeting out their war crimes openly, because they thought, oh, look, we are carrying out our revenge, we are crushing them, this is all good. But to the rest of the world, it's plain as a day. They're committing war crime, they're committing genocide, they're committing atrocities, they're killing civilians, they're killing children. 55% of the population in Gaza are children. And Israelis, they have basically lost the war in the propaganda front. But you know what? They don't care, because they have the full backing of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Biden signed up for. We have
Mm-hmm.
reports now. White House advisors, they have contacted Israel before their war on Lebanon, and they gave the go ahead. They,
Mm-hmm.
we all know this. Israel would never do something without explicit backing or promise of backing from the United States. And that's what, despite all the noise, Biden says, oh, we are really distraught over this affair, where, or like Kamala, like AOC is saying, Kamala Harris is striving tirelessly for ceasefire. That's all bullshit. That's all like their cover. That's all their PR. What they're really doing is they're planning this whole campaign to destabilize the Middle East, to cower all the Arab states, to warn them not to get too close to Russia or China, and
Mm-hmm.
to cower them to continue to bend the knee to the U.S. hegemony in the region. That is the entire plan. But we can always count on the stupidity and incompetence of the U.S. elite to totally fuck up the implementation. They had a grand plan for the Iraq war too. Before they went into Iraq, like Alan Greenspan says, oh, we're not simply there to grab the oil. We're there to dictate where the oil can flow. Because back in 2003, they realized China is becoming more dependent on the Gulf oil. They're like, you know what? Rather than having this Russian and Chinese company going there bidding for Iraqi oil contract, we're just going to go there, grab the country, and then we can dictate where the oil will flow. And it's all these chicken hawks who dream about this grand scenario, and they send the stupidest, most incompetent people to carry out their evil genius, quote unquote genius plan. And it's a disaster. It's a disaster. Not only, it's disaster for sure for the Iraqi people, but it's disaster also for the U.S. own foreign policy and the U.S. own standing in the world. The U.S. is still recovering from that, and this will not happen any differently. The United States right now, everyone can see the empire is overstretched. It's
Mm-hmm.
overstretching Ukraine. It's overstretching the Middle East, and now there's now another faction of the war party wants to pick a fight with China. This is crazy stuff. I mean, this is not sustainable. I mean, this is why you have people like Mearsheimer who are coming out and like, look, oh, okay, guys, we got to do this. We got to do imperialism a little bit smarter. You know, how about we pull out of Ukraine, we pull out of the Middle East, and then we just concentrate on China because that's the biggest threat to U.S. hegemony. But this is Washington, you know, like Washington is many-headed beast. There's jobs involved, Rasheed. You know, there's NATO bureaucrats whose jobs are on the line. They must increasingly escalate with Russia. And then there's you know, and Middle East. Israel, forget about it. It's the golden child. U.S. has to support the golden child 100%. So U.S. now is committed on all three fronts, and we all know U.S. do not have the capacity to do a three-front confrontation. So it's just a matter of timing now. Like, I mean, this is right now. Israel is still not. They're still not crushing Hamas. They still haven't crushed Hezbollah. They're just gonna go into this war, get themselves dragged deeper and deeper into the war, and drag the United States along with it. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't even use the word drag the United States out. The United States is doing it willy-nilly, but you know, we can always count on them to fuck it up.
You know, your analysis is exactly like mine on the situation. I don't understand why everybody continues to say that Israel controls America. These are the same peas in the same pod, and that is why you see that these bunker buster bombs that were used to assassinate Nasrallah and top lieutenants and Iranian officials in those bunkers, they were already given by the United States. So the United States had lead intelligence on that a while ago, and they were talking about peace in order to buy time to strategically move all of the assets that they needed to move into place, so that when they give the go ahead, boom, 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 and they can hit it and take it. But before we come in, I want to play a clip on something that you said, and I want to also stop right now and give an acknowledgement to Flying Crocodile 46 for the $50 super chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Everybody hit the like button, and I want to play this clip about Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. And for those of you who don't know, Yahya's name, to make it more palatable to Western people, Yahya's name translated in English is John. John, John. Okay, that's what Yahya means in Arabic. So I want you to listen to this real quick.
Middle East Bureau Chief Maria Finoshna speaking from Jerusalem. Maria, we've just been going through it there that Yahya Sinwar may have been killed, apparently the architect behind the attacks. So I would say he was prime target for the IDF. What's emerging surrounding that?
Now, we're only hearing rumors, and yes, if it is confirmed, it is a big deal. But the IDF has released a report stating it is currently investigating the possibility that one of 3 militants killed earlier during the army's operations in Gaza was Yahya Sinwar, the only remaining leader of Hamas in Gaza. That is after rumors again about his death started spreading rapidly online. The army did not specify in the statement whether it was in an air bombardment or during a combat ground operation. Neither was it mentioned in which area of the strip the killing happened. Recently, the army, as you know, has been fighting in the south, center, and north of Gaza. It was additionally and specifically mentioned in the report that in the building where the militants were eliminated, there were no signs of the presence of hostages, and there were no signs of the hostages in that area. There had been rumors and numerous reports before, and also we heard accusations from Israeli leadership many times that Sinwar had been hiding among hostages, using them as human shields. We also hear from Israeli media right now that the dead bodies were now sent to DNA examination, and we are expecting to receive some kind of official information on who these bodies belong to within the next several hours. Israeli media also speculate that the incident happened on Wednesday and that the Israeli troops opened fire on a group of militants on the ground floor of a building somewhere in Gaza. And when they eventually entered the building, they realized that one of the dead militants looked very much like Sinwar. So if so, it was not even a special operation aimed at eliminating Sinwar, but it was an accident. Again, no official confirmation so far. We hear from the army that the DNA expertise is now undergoing, so we have to wait for some time for it to be confirmed. But yes, it is a big deal. If confirmed, Sinwar has led Hamas within Gaza since 2017 after joining the group's ranks in the early 1980s. The 62-year-old is believed to be the mastermind of the 7 October attacks, and he is surely the key target of Israeli military operation in Gaza. Sinwar took over full leadership of Hamas after the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, who was the political leader of the group. Haniyeh, as you remember, died in Iran in July, and Israel was widely said to be behind the killing, though officially Tel Aviv has never taken responsibility for that. So if confirmed, of course, Sinwar's elimination is expected to heavily impact the ongoing war in Gaza. He was a crucial figure in military planning, and his death is likely to affect any near-term progress on a potential hostage deal as well, because he was the key figure Israel was negotiating with through mediators, but still, and now there is nobody left to negotiate the fate of the remaining Israeli hostages still being held somewhere in Gaza, probably in underground tunnels and the group may shift priorities or lose leverage without its leadership, without Sinwar. And this development may escalate the conflict further as both sides reassess their strategies. So for now, it is hard to say how exactly will Sinwar's death affect the situation. But since it was, and he was, Israel's key target in the entire operation in the Gaza Strip, we might expect that Israel must start thinking and claiming about being ready to end this war. But again, we have to wait for the official confirmation from the army that now the bodies have been sent to DNA expertise.
So shout out to Flying Crocodile 46 for the $50 super chat, and shout out to New Zealand. And also got to give another one. Shout out to Terry Stevenson. Thank you so much. He said this is a $50 super chat, another $50 super chat, and he says, Rasheed, you rock. Many thanks for your work, Vancouver, Canada. Salute to Vancouver, Canada. Hey, Carl, when we're looking at this situation, and we see that you and I are thinking the same terms, that this is not by accident, that all of that material that was used to target Hezbollah, to target Syria, to target the Hamas people were put there in advance by the United States. Why aren't any other analysts picking up on that, and they continue to play this drum that the Israeli lobby is what runs the United States? And common sense tells me that wherever the money flows, that's who controls the policies.
This is called the plausible deniability.
Yes.
Plausible deniability, Rasheed. This allows Biden and Kamala, on one hand, they can say, "Oh, we're really concerned about civilian casualties," and Tony Blinken too. It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate tragedy. This continues. At the same time, they can continue to supply weapons, supply coordinates to Israeli, supply intelligence, and they are fully 100% involved. At the same time, they say, "Oh yeah, we regret the death of civilians." No, they're not. United States never care about the death of Arabs. The U.S. has been killing Arabs since as long as I can remember. I mean, remember this. Back in 1982. The U.S. will send Marines to Lebanon, and that's also because to coincide with the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. The U.S. has always been very deeply involved into destabilize the region, because U.S. presented itself as a security guarantor to the region. U.S. Has its CENTCOM headquarters in the Gulf. U.S. Navy has their headquarters in the Gulf, and they are to other client states. We're talking about the Gulf Arab states, including Saudi Arabia. It's like, we are the big dog here. We can provide you security. At the same time, we can fuck you up. This is why you have to continue to rely on us to put your money into buy U.S. Treasury bills, to continue to invest in U.S. dollar denominated assets. Don't even think about de-dollarization. Don't you even dare to think about trading oil in yuan. We are the ones who are in charge. This is why they're doing this. And I have to go back to the death of Sinwar, because it just exposed the whole lies and propaganda coming out of Israel. They say Sinwar was hiding in the tunnels. He was using human shields of children and women. He was hiding in hospitals. That's why Israel have to bomb hospitals. It turns out Sinwar was fight in the front with his men. He was not hiding in the tunnels. He was not hiding behind a human shield. And in this case, it seems like they didn't even know where he was. This was an accident. This happened when Sinwar was leading a firefight against invading Israelis. So he really was leading his man. He was in the front. He was setting an example, and this example will resonate. One Sinwar may have died, but his example inspired thousands and thousands of Sinwar. And another thing about the hostage, the whole claim, whole justification for Israel's genocide on Gaza is that Israel claimed that they want the hostage back. But guess what? They keep on killing people. They negotiate for the hostage. They keep Hanaya, who was the chief negotiator, and now they kill Sinwar. Everyone who they could negotiate with for the hostages to kill. Common sense tells me Israel is not interested in getting hostage back. I mean, they've been bombing the hostages. Some of the hostages have been killed, caught in the crossfire by, being bombed by Israel. And they this is all a justification. They don't care about our hostages. This is why, actually, a lot of the hostage families in Israel are finally wising up. They're demanding Netanyahu to commence the hostage negotiation immediately. But this is all covered. They don't care about hostages. If they care about hostages, they would have done the trade on day one, on October 8th. No, now a year later, they do not care about hostages. This
and
is
remember this, Carl. Not only are they assassinating all of the negotiators for peace and a ceasefire, this is how they got Nasrallah in Lebanon. They had agreed to a ceasefire. And so the Hamas let their guard down because the United States had assured that this was going to be about a ceasefire, and that Israel would cease bombing Palestine and cease its aggressiveness towards Lebanon within the next 24 hours. And within hours after Nasrallah agreed to that with the United States, they bombed the headquarters where Nasrallah was located, with the Iranian forces and his top lieutenants to try to sort out how the peace agreement would shape up. So it's not just Israel, it's the United States, it's the UK. These people, they're on a blood drive because they see their world order destabilized. And in conjunction with that, this is not just confined to the Middle East area. I keep telling people that this regional war is the MENA region, the Middle East and North African region, and because they see China and Russia as their main enemies, because more people are starting to gravitate towards the Belt and Road Initiative. They're starting to gravitate towards BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And with that said, I want to bring up something to show people. This is about a minute, just about 1 minute and 10 seconds, about what's going on in North Africa. And remember that Ukraine doesn't have money to pay its own budget. So how can Ukraine manage to arm and train terrorists in Mali and North Africa without being supplied the money and the weapons by the Western world? So I want you to pay close attention to this right here, everybody that's watching.
In my view, Mali today is confronted by a group of terrorists, indeed terrorist states. They include the United States and its allies such as France. Indeed, the terrorists in northern Mali have always been supported by France and NATO. That is clearly demonstrated by a recent interview with one of the leaders of the Strategic Framework for the Defence of the People of Azawad, who confirmed that they are supported by Ukraine. And they are indeed being assisted in financing and organising terrorist activity in northern Mali. And here in Mali, they're trying to target Russia. When any state behaves in a hostile manner, in terms of diplomacy, the least we can do is to instigate an interpellation. When we initiated an interpellation to the Ukrainian ambassador, he behaved unfriendly towards us. The only way is to expel him. I believe that today a country like Ukraine is not useful for Mali. Their interaction between Mali and Ukraine has little return, both in economic terms and in terms of security and real cooperation. So at this point in time, in my opinion, it makes no sense at all to continue interaction with a country that's trying to support terrorists against us. We believe that Ukraine is an aggressor country. Today, we understand the real and deep nature of the crisis in Russia's relations with Ukraine.
So we're seeing this not being contained in the so-called Middle East region. This is all of West Asia, which is North Africa, all the way up through what is termed as the Middle East. And this is a ploy to try to weaken China, because China gets a lot of oil from certain African nations, and they want that area destabilized in order to prevent China's breakout capacity as the number one rising power. What do you say on that? Because this is close to an act of war, if not an act of war.
This is what United States do at best. So right now, U.S. is positioned itself as like the only oasis of calm. If it can destabilize Africa, Middle East, West Asia, Europe, then all the capital can flow back to U.S. to investment in U.S. This is how the U.S. strategy is like. Okay, you see, you can't park your money, to all those oil-rich Gulf Arab countries. You can't park your money in our region because we made a huge mess of it. So only choice you have for a secure place to park your money is in the United States. Put your money in our banks. Put your money, invest in U.S. real estate. Invest in the U.S. stock market. Invest in the U.S. Treasury bills. And what they do, and they realize that especially in the Sahel region of Africa, people are getting sick and tired of France, France colonialism for centuries. They're finally waking up. This is happening in Mali, in Niger, in Chad, and now this is why they're doing. The U.S. is just playing the spoiler now. You know what? If you don't want us. If you don't want us there, we will make it difficult for you. And the way they use Ukrainian proxy, guess where we've seen that before? I mean, like now they're trying to tell us Nord Stream was blown up by some Ukrainian amateurs who had a little dinky a sailboat, and then they somehow managed to get sophisticated diving gears to going down and blow up this trillion this critical infrastructure for Germany. But we just had news leaked out that they actually observed the U.S. Navy warships nearby was monitoring the whole area is one of the most heavily surveyed sea by the NATO, right? I mean, we all knew that. Like that, there's no way a bunch of Ukrainians could just like sneak in at night and got the job done. we now have confirmation that U.S. ships was in the area that switched off their transponder. They try to go incognito. They were in the area, but yet they're still telling us, "Oh, it's the Ukrainians who did it." This is what, again, for plausible deniability. This is why they're using Ukraine as a proxy in Africa against the Russians, because the way China and Russia works is complementary. Russia provides security. Russia went to Syria to crush the jihadis, and Russia went into Kazakhstan, and Russia went to Africa. They sent Wagner group to Africa. China is not comfortable sending the People's Liberation Army abroad because China pursued non-interventionist foreign policy. China instead provides money investment. They build infrastructure. So in a way, China and Russia's role is complementary. Russia provides the security, and China provides the infrastructure and the investment. And what this is why U.S. sees it as a big threat. So they play the spoiler role. You know what? If I can't have it, then I will make a mess for you. This is what they do. They do this all over the world. They do this in the Middle East. They do this in Africa. They do this in West Asia. They will try to do it in Southeast Asia as well. I mean, this is how they think they can salvage the U.S. leadership position in the world right now. They will light the world on fire, so it appears United States is like this island of calm, right? So this is where you have to park your money, and that is their. I mean, it is working in a way, but they're doing this basically screwing their own allies. Look at what happened to Europe. Germany has been deindustrialized. And because they got cut off from Russian gas, and now United States forcing them to cut themselves off on the Chinese market. Like recently, EU, they just approved, they just raised very high tariffs on Chinese EV cars. And guess what? Germany actually opposed that measure in EV. Germany, right, is the one that opposed the move because a lot of people don't realize a lot of the EV export out of China are actually foreign brands. We're talking the EV coming out of China, the majority are Tesla or Volkswagen or BMW. And the BMW, they had their whole EV production line in China. So Germany, they don't want to like raise tariff against themselves, but you have this automobile superpowers like Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and they're all voting for the tariff. This is why the whole Eastern, the EU expansion to the east is a mistake. The whole reason to including all these Eastern European countries was to give United States even more voice in EU. They're essentially U.S. proxies. Poland, the Baltic countries, they always vote with United States, and France. Interestingly, France also voted for it, so they're getting payback now because China imposed raised luxury tax on brandy because look, China can live without luxury goods from Europe. China can produce its own luxury goods now. It doesn't need all the rich people from China to go import this expensive wine, champagne from Europe. It's okay. China can live without that. But this is the price you pay for doing something. It's like what. Anyways. I'm not even aware if France has an EV industry, but anyway, they're all doing this. I mean, look, Canada did the same, right? Canada also imposed slap tariffs on Chinese EVs. Like Canada has an auto industry. It has only auto industry Canada have are basically assembling plants. for the Toyotas and for the American for American cars. So they had no dog in the fight, but the reason they're doing it is because, of course, Washington are telling them to, and all these transatlantic elite right now, all of them are beholden to Washington. There's a clear separation between them, their own interest, and the interest of the people they claim to represent. Because these European elite, they like von der Leyen or Baerbock, their job and their position of power is tied to how closely they toe Washington's line. They don't have to appease or appeal to the European voters. As long as they are the voice of Washington, they can continue to with their cushy jobs in Europe, and nobody is there to challenge them. And that's the thing. It's like Henry Kissinger said. It's what to be enemy of United States is bad, but to be friends of United States is fatal. This is what happens. This is what's happening.
Yeah, I want to go into some, since we're on this subject of China, which I wanted to get to. I wanted to probably try to save that for last because it's so much. But since we're on it, we might as well shake, rattle, and roll because I like this subject. I want you to listen to something from Kevin O'Leary and what he thinks the United States should do. And after that, we're going to go back about those EVs and what the West is trying to do to prevent China's breakout capacity. But first, I want to. This will be the first time I listen to this clip also with you guys. And so it's Kevin O'Leary. He's always on these different shows talking, and this is what he has to say concerning China.
It must be hard for you to spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to have to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff. Our country is being threatened by Mexico. Our allies have taken advantage of us more so than our enemies. We're stuck with a bad deal. We have trade deals that were so bad that I said, who are the people that are doing it? They're either very stupid or they're getting paid off.
Trump got a lot of applause lines yesterday on that. That was former President Trump pushing back on Bloomberg's top editor talking tariffs. Look at this. The U.S. ranks among the lowest in the world on tariffs. Other nations are hitting the U.S. goods with higher tariffs. Look who's here. O'Leary Ventures chairman. He's Mr. Wonderful. Kevin O'Leary. The new season of Shark Tank airs this Friday. Kevin, when you saw this debate, by the way, thank you so much for joining us. Trump is saying he wants to tariff car imports and the like to boost manufacturing here, to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Would it increase inflation? What do you think?
So you use tariffs to change behavior. And let's talk about the real tariff war. It's between the United States and China. This is an economic war going on. They do not play by the rules. They steal American companies' IP. We can't use their court systems. They litigate us with our American courts. And a good example of that is what's going on right now with TikTok, where we have a law that says it's Chinese spyware. The American people have decided to shut it down on January 19th, and the supreme leader of China is using our courts to sue us to stop that. I can't do that in China. So what he's talking about when Trump talks about tariffs is, can we use them to change behavior? And let me give you an example. If you increase tariffs on China by 400%, which I want to do, you won't buy any more yoga mats from there. You'll buy them from Vietnam or India or somewhere else, or maybe you make the yoga mats in the United States. I want to go to DEFCON 5 on China because I actually live in the real world. I'm not listening to a professor at some university. I actually do business there, and I'm getting screwed. So I would love to really push back and blow their eyeballs out until they come to the table. So I like tariffs against China. I'm not a big fan of tariffs everywhere, but he talked about John Deere in Mexico, moving them back to the U.S. They changed their behavior. You use tariffs as tactical warheads. And right now, we should be using that as a blowtorch on China to squeeze them to make a fair playing field with us while we're the largest economy. Let's do it. Let's squeeze them. 400% tariffs. A lot of people think I'm crazy with this. No, I'm not. They will be at the table in 48 hours with a 400% tariffs because their economy's weak. Let's hit them when they're down. Let's do it now. Interesting,
Kevin. You know, Biden and Harris kept Trump's tariffs on China. Trump's use of tariffs, major trade deals, the U.S., Mexico-Canada agreement came after his tariff push. Deals with the EU, the Phase 1 trade deal with China. Even Bloomberg reports tariffs did pay off for China starting in the 1980s. But we keep seeing, the Moody's and the others saying that's going to increase inflation. Will it get passed on in inflation?
Look, no, it won't. It'll change behavior. Most of our trading partners, it's yin and yang on tariffs. India, England, France, Switzerland. We work it out. Canada, Mexico, there's a little bit of a tiff going on. But they're our allies, and we can work it out. They come to the table. China doesn't come to the table. Let's hit them hard with tariffs. I'm good with it.
Okay, let's get your reaction to Tim Walz saying he doesn't know a really basic thing about Wall Street. Watch this.
This guy's a venture capitalist cosplaying like he's a cowboy or something. I don't even know what a venture capitalist does most of the time.
Kevin, do you want that guy in the Situation Room?
Yeah, venture capital, that's called the American dream. It's created the largest economy on earth. It creates 62% of jobs in America. Come on. We need venture capitalists. I don't know what he's talking about.
Kevin O'Leary, you're the best. Thank you for joining us. That was terrific stuff. Good to see you.
So first, Carl, I know you're dying to address a lot of the madness in what he stated. But before you do, they said that Kevin O'Leary said we need to hit China and hit China hard while we're still the largest economy. This is one of the greatest fears that they fear, that China will outstrip them. But I have something that maybe will wake him up. In 2015, CBS News reported that China had already become the largest economy in the world in purchasing power parity. In 2017, this is what it says right here. Yes, China has been the world's. Now, this is another article too from another magazine. Yes, China has been the world's largest economy by purchasing power parity since 2017. So CBS did a report in 2015 saying it happened in 2015. We had another article saying that 2017 China has surpassed them. And this article came out in October the 15th, 2020, and it's from the U.S. The National Interest, and we know that's pro-U.S. regardless, pro-U.S. magazine. And it says, China is now the world's largest economy. We shouldn't be shocked. And it uses the metrics. In this article, it tells you the metrics it uses, the ones that are deemed the most reliable by the IMF and the CIA. And China outstrips the United States. And here it is. It says, China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world, measured by the more refined yardstick that both the IMF and the CIA now judge to be the single best metric for comparing national economies. The IMF report shows that China's economy is 1/6 larger than America's. And here's the comparison. At the time, it was 24.2 trillion versus the United States, 20.8 trillion. And it says, why can't we admit reality? What does this mean? And I believe that what Kevin is doing, he's lashing out because he's coming to the realization that it is a non-Western nation that is outstripping Western nations, especially and specifically the United States, that has dominated the economic sphere for so long. And that in their mind, this is unacceptable. What are you saying about that, Carl?
Okay, first of all, so there's so much stuff. So first of all, U.S. economy, a lot of it right now, the GDP calculation is based on fluff. OnlyFans is counted as part of the U.S. GDP. So is gambling. I mean, like, if you want to look at the real numbers, look at power generation. You can't lie about electricity consumption. Compare the power generation between China and United States. compare household savings. Average. Here every day people say, "Oh, but China, we are still, wealthiest country. GDP per capita, we still far outstrip China." Okay, let's not talk about how your GDP is fake, but let's talk about GDP per capita. GDP per capita means you take the whole country GDP, you divide by the population numbers, you get the GDP per capita. But you know what? GDP per capita is not what you have in the bank, because United States is not a communist country. There's no equal distribution of wealth in United States. The GDP per capita doesn't mean shit to average working Americans. Most of the GDP is held by the top 1%. So what you need to look at is actually the medium household savings and household wealth. And in this apartment, even though Chinese GDP per capita by numbers looks like much lower than United States, but if you actually look at Chinese household savings, the average Chinese household in Shanghai or Beijing, they have a lot more money in the bank than the average Americans. This may be shocking to a lot of Americans, but this is how China, in the huge household saving rate in China. This is what allowed China to become a creditor nation, and this is why China has a large capital surplus they can use to buy U.S. Treasury. They're financing the U.S. consumption right now. U.S. is a debtor nation. Sure, we have a lot of things. We have a lot of things on borrowed money. We're on borrowed Chinese money, and this is why they're. By the way, go back to O'Leary's comment. There's actually a lot of useful information if you just pay attention to what he said. He said he's angry because he said he himself is doing business in China, but he's angry because he's getting screwed. That is the motivation a lot of the anti-China propaganda in the U.S. corporate media, because the U.S. investors are not making money head over heels like they used to be, because now they're having a lot of Chinese competitors. They're getting squeezed out of the market. So now they're screaming. Now they want U.S. to place tariffs. And when he said U.S. tariff on China will not cause inflation, that's a big lie. I mean, he really just tried to go in detail on that. He just said no, because he cannot defend that position. And if he's right about tariff, it's about moderating the behavior. Oh, by the way, when Trump talk about tariff, he always say, "We'll make China pay the tariff." China never pays the tariff. Tariff is paid by the Americans.
Yes.
Tariff. The Chinese company who produce a good, once they're sold, they're sold. They got their money in the bank. It's when the American importers of the Chinese goods, when they import Chinese goods, they pay that tariff to the U.S. custom. So they pass down the tariff to American consumers who see higher prices in the supermarket. So Chinese never pay for the tariff. The Americans pay for the tariff. And a lot of Americans don't even realize this. But he's right, is about tariff is about moderating behavior. I mean, the whole idea of tariff is you raise the tariff so these American importers then would no longer be importing from China, because they will have to pay higher tariff and they will have to seek alternative source. Now, the thing is, even O'Leary admitted those jobs are not coming back. They're just going to go import from Vietnam, from Indonesia, from Mexico, from other places. And a lot of time what's happening is the Chinese goods are making a round trip. They're going through Vietnam, going through Mexico, doing a round trip, and the Chinese consumer are still paying the premium over the added transportation costs. And so this is another thing is about, okay, tariffs is supposedly bring the job. Let's talk about the bring jobs back. The problem is U.S. those Wall Street types, venture capitalists like O'Leary himself. They're the ones who hollow out the U.S. manufacturing since 1970s, being offsourcing, offshoring all these factories. When you do that for 40 years, what happens is you lose the people who have the skills, manufacturing skills. So today, even if they try to bring those factories back, you can't find the skilled workers to do that job anymore. It's been 40 years for those skilled jobs were out of the country. You lost a whole generation of trained workers, and and by the way, they're also not training the new workers for these jobs either, because we all know the public school system is shit in the United States. They're not investing more in the public education. So and this is why when Obama talked to Steve Jobs about, why can't we build iPhones in America, Steve Jobs says, no, we don't have the skills for that. And also think about this dynamic. Can you imagine if Xi Jinping went to Jack Ma and say, okay, Alibaba got to source more components made in China, and Alibaba and Jack Ma will say, no, can't do. I'd rather do it in Vietnam or Indonesia. That does not happen. But this happens in the United States because money is a king in the United States. People like Steve Jobs, people like all these tech billionaires, they can tell the politicians what to do. They won't tell politicians what's going to happen, because they're the ones who's really running the country. That's not the case in China. That's people keep on saying, oh, China is just as capitalist as the United States. Look, Jack Ma does not make policy in China. Chinese government will tell you, not the vice versa. This kind of dynamic only happens in the United States, where Steve Jobs can straight up and tell Obama in the face, like, no, we're not bringing iPhone production back to the U.S. Because we don't have the skills for it. I mean, he's also right. There was no skill. We don't have the skill manufacturing. One thing United States used to do in the past is they used to brain drain people from all over the world to come to the United States. All the top engineers, top scientists, and stuff. And since the Trump administration, the first Trump administration in 2018, the FBI has started really going after Chinese scientists and researchers because it's this whole belief that the only reason China could advance is because they steal technology from the United States. And how do we stop that? Oh, we're going to go after all the Chinese researcher and scientists working in U.S. institutions. People who made this policy, they have no idea how dependent U.S. scientific research institutions depend on Chinese grad students and Chinese labor. They had no idea, because I came to United States in 1990. My dad came here in 1985. So I remember when I visited my dad's lab in University of Illinois back in 1990, I was like, oh, it's all Chinese here. All the researchers are Chinese, and now they're like trying to force this. They're hounding these Chinese researchers and scientists, and now thousands of Chinese scientists are now hitting back. Some of them top scientists in their fields are now heading back to China. I mean, U.S. is just stabbing itself in the foot repeatedly, and going back to the another thing O'Leary said. I mean, a lot of things he said, if you actually listen carefully, you can bleed out useful information. He said, look, the countries like Canada, like Europe, like Mexico, we can work with them. We get them to come to the table and agree to our terms. Now, China doesn't play by those rules. That is why they hate China, because they can easily make the vassal states in Europe, in Canada, in Mexico to bend their knee to their master in Washington. They cannot do that to China, because China is a truly sovereign nation. China said, well, like, no, you come to China, you play by our rules. And this, and another thing that he talked about, technological theft. I mean, this is ridiculous. There was never like everything is above the ground in China. When the foreign company, U.S. multinational, come to China, China says, look, if you want to do business, China, you have to do technology transfer. You have to train your staff, local Chinese staff, in your technology, operating your machinery, how everything works. So this is how China gains skills. But this all ironclad clause. This all the company understood that was a price to do business in China. And in terms of Tesla, China didn't even do that. They didn't even mandate tech transfer, but they say, you can't. We can't have you open 100% own Tesla factory in Shanghai where you own 100%, but you got to make sure a majority of the components are sourced locally from China.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how technology transfer actually takes place. It's it's part of the Chinese government mandate. It's part of a process of the Chinese students going abroad. They study in the universities. They work in the multinationals, and some of them, the more ambitious one, they realize after 10 years they will hit a bamboo ceiling in the corporate world. Whereas when they go back to China, the sky is the limit. So they went back. I mean, that's the experience I know of my dad's classmates who came to China with him to United States and then work in the U.S. corporate world. But after 10 years, they feel like, okay, they cannot rise anymore. And that's a story, by the way, of the TSMC founder Morris Chan. A lot of people don't know Morris Chan is American. He came to United States, became naturalized U.S. citizen. He he worked in Texas Instrument, and they keep on bypassing him for promotion to the top job. And in the end, he realized, you know what? They will never let me to take the top job in this top U.S. corporation, in this white dominated world. At the same time, when Taiwan government came to him and said, look, we will give you all the money, all the funding, all the tax break, whatever you want. We want you to set up semiconductor manufacturing in Taiwan. And so he took that offer. He went to Taiwan and founded TSMC. And this is this is what they call tech theft. In the United States, this is what they call tech theft. I mean, it's what the root cause is. U.S. is losing its competitive edge against China, whether in science, in research, in business, in trade. They're losing, so they are lashing out. They're lashing out very wildly, lashing out and trying to preserve the top spot of U.S. But it's all in vain, because the more they do, more Chinese scientists are going to go back to China. The more the Chinese government is going to invest in the semiconductor manufacturing, more chip sanction on China, the U.S. is imposing on all the American companies and its European allies. That means more incentive for the Chinese companies to source domestically, because they realize there's overseas supply chain is no longer reliable. We just saw ASML. This is a Dutch manufacturing of the EUV machines that's used to make advanced semiconductor chips. The TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor, they buy machines from ASML to make these like 5 nanometer semiconductor chip. So because ASML has this monopoly position, United States came to ASML and Dutch government and said, you can no longer sell to China because we don't want you to help China to grow their own indigenous manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing. So guess what? Once that sanction came out, ASML stock price just collapsed because their majority of the customer is in China. China is their biggest export market. Because Huawei and SMIC, Chinese semiconductor companies, they have been hoarding, they have been buying a lot of the equipment from ASML in anticipation of the U.S. sanction. So now when the U.S. sanction actually is going to put in place, that cuts off majority of the revenue and the future revenue from ASML. Of course, their stock price is collapsing, and this is now U.S. is investigating Taiwan Semiconductor. They're investing TSMC for supposedly not strictly enforcing U.S. sanction on Huawei. Again, China is the biggest customer for TSMC, for the Taiwan Semiconductors. U.S. is going to all its allied vassal countries to choke off their choke off their export revenue, and not just these companies either, but also American companies. Nvidia, its largest customer base is in China. The U.S. is now telling Nvidia you cannot sell AI chips to China because we are afraid that China is going to use this AI chips to build nukes or something, which is bullshit. And now Huawei came out with their rival AI chip, Ascend, which now they say is as good as Nvidia. So Nvidia is going to be screwed as China build its own domestic production supply chain. They no longer need. Once they figure out, I think they're very close. I think they're pretty close. We're just talking about timing, whether it's going to happen in a couple of years or 5 years. I think China will eventually figure out a way to replicate what ASML does with EUV machines and DUV machines. China already have capability. They're already making their own EUV machine to make 25 nanometer chips. They're already heading toward that direction. So they no longer have to rely on ASML to make the middle of the line chips production. By the way, that's the largest chip market because not the smallest, 5 nanometer, 7 nanometer. Those are just used in smartphones. You really need smaller chips to fit inside in the phones. But everything else, refrigerator, TV, you don't need like really tiny transistors to make a fridge. And of course, the U.S. claim about China using advanced semiconductor to make missiles, that's all bullshit. When you have ICBM, there's a lot of space on that ICBM. You don't need to miniaturize your chip design to fit on ICBM, right? And in fact, the ICBMs, they have to harden against radiation. So there's certain requirements that makes it impractical to make your to use like the most advanced semiconductor chip. Anyway, so my whole spiel is whatever United States does right now, it's stabbing itself in the foot, but they're keep on trying it. Now they're thinking, okay, maybe it's because we haven't put enough sanctions. Our sanctions is not working. Maybe because we haven't put enough sanctions. They're going to apply more sanctions. This is only going to accelerate the indigenization of Chinese semiconductor domestic supply chain, and once people have no idea, man. I'm telling you, Rasheed, a lot of people in U.S. they still think China exists in like 1960s or maybe even 19th century. They have no idea kind of the breakthrough the China is making or about to make. You have Elon Musk, talking about his robo-taxi. It's like China had a robo-taxi, have a driverless taxi for years now. Like people just don't know about it outside of China. And also Elon Musk, I don't know how that, what happened to Hyperloop, huh? I don't know if those ideas going to translate. I don't know, man. So we're going to have to see.
I'm going to go back to something that Lex Burton says. He says China has the greatest manufacturing capacity. U.S. has the greatest clown production capacity and the greatest national debt. I absolutely concur with that 100%. Let's see. Jack Ma and capitalists know their place and stay there when it concerns China. Now, I want to play a clip. This comes off Global Times. And I want to play this clip about what you were just talking about. This is about a 4-minute clip. And while it's doing it, I'm going to black my camera so that I can straighten these two screens that keep sliding down for a minute. So everybody pay close attention to this.
It's been a little while since the announcement that Qualcomm is considering merging with Intel. I have to say that I remember the days when I was at Applied Materials board more than a decade ago. Intel was God. Intel was the one that could do no wrong. And now we found out that there's been some serious misrepresentations, let's just say, in the financials of the company, hiding a lot of losses. Now, what happened? I think one way we can look at it is the whole chip sector has been seriously distorted from normal market practices by the sanctions the U.S. imposed on Chinese semiconductor business. What happened is that forcing the chip companies to give up their biggest market, which is China, is creating new competitors for these chip companies from the Chinese development of chips by themselves. And this is something that has been distorting the market of late for a couple of years now. It's impacted on Qualcomm, it's impacted on Intel, of course, and then Samsung as well. And ultimately, of course, the real manufacturers, Taiwan Semiconductor, and so on. I think what we see is the sanctions by the U.S. on Chinese semiconductor industry, the market distorting forces that creates is really no good for everyone. And this will eventually lead to serious downfall of a number of U.S. chip companies. As we see now what happened to Intel. What will eventually happen, whether or not it would be cash injection or it would be an acquisition or merger, it's not clear yet. But the turmoil in the semiconductor sector, in the market, especially now leading to a top level, is going to continue, and it's probably going to wreak more havoc on the semiconductor industries in the West. What will happen to Intel? Nobody really knows. Cash injection will help it along for a while, but it doesn't change the fact that Intel no longer is at the tip of the pyramid. What will also happen to the acquisition case that Qualcomm has produced? Don't know yet. But from what I hear from friends in the sector, it's not going to be an easy acquisition to make, especially since it involves financial records which have indicated that there have been serious misrepresentation in the books of Intel. I think it's very likely that something has to happen to save Intel, and something will happen to save Intel. This is despite the fact that the U.S. government, through their Inflation Reduction Act, has already given billions of support to the semiconductor industry in the U.S. But the market has been distorted. The biggest market in the world, namely the Chinese market, has been taken away by the U.S. government sanctions, taken away from these chip companies. I think it's going to be very very difficult times ahead for the chip companies.
Pretty much what you were just speaking about. Go ahead, Carl. I know you want to address that.
Well, Charles Liu is being diplomatic. Intel is screwed. Intel is screwed, man. This is despite like hundreds of $billions that U.S. government have promised for the CHIP Act, all this government handout for the chip companies. They was supposed to make up for the loss of the Chinese market, but that's not sustainable. I mean, you build all these manufacturing capacity in United States, and who's going to buy them? Who's going to buy them when you cannot sell to China? And Intel also not doing themselves any favor by keep on making shitty products. China actually just opened an investigation on Intel for a security backdoor. So apparently, U.S. always talk about how Chinese-made product has a backdoor. The Chinese MSS, the Ministry of Security, they're gonna watch you on what games you play on your computer through their insertion of the red chip, etc. But it turns out Intel has this backdoor built in, and it's been known, and we all know why Intel have backdoor. All these tech companies, they all built this backdoor for the U.S. intelligence companies to tap in to continue their surveillance of the U.S. public. This is why whenever U.S. is talking about China, it's almost 100% projection, because U.S. is doing this to their own citizens. So they're saying, oh, China must be doing the same. And this is their justification for banning Huawei, by the way, because U.S. intelligence service, they know they're not going to get a backdoor to Huawei. So when they find out, okay, Huawei hold all these patents on 5G, and if all these countries are going to have Huawei install their infrastructure, that means the Five Eyes will be blind. The Five Eye network will be blind. So of course they can't have Huawei. So yeah, I mean, Intel is screwed, man. I just don't see how this is gonna end. This is gonna end well. And what would be interesting, I would want to see if I don't know, Trump will win at this point, but if there's going to be a second Trump administration, whether he reverses some of the hardline Biden chip sanctions, because the thing is, Trump says he wants to create American jobs. He said he wanted America to win. Like the Biden's chip sanctions are basically crippling the U.S. chip industry. They're not helping the U.S. tech sector. They're prevented from making money by selling to China. That's U.S. claim they're worried about the deficit, about the trade surplus China has. But when the right now the top, what's the top category? The most top money item U.S. is exporting to China right now? It's corn. It's agricultural products, because U.S. companies are not allowed to sell any high tech products that China actually wants to buy. So right now, U.S. exports to China looks like the typical third world country export to a developed world. It's all like commodities, agricultural commodities. And so, if they really worry about the trade imbalance, they really worry about the trade deficit, let the U.S. company sell to China. And it's a no-brainer. But that's not what they worry about. They really don't worry about trade deficit. They don't really worry about trade imbalance. Those are just for talk points, in political debates. They're really worried about, Rasheed. You know this, I know this. They're really worried about the U.S. hegemonic status being eroded by continued rise of China. That's what they really worry about. That's why they're doing all these self-sabotaging efforts, shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, just so just to stop China's progress. But China cannot be stopped. I think investor Jim Roger, he said this back in early 1990. He said the rise of China is secular, it's baked in. At this point, nothing can stop China's progress other than a thermonuclear war. This is, by the way, this is what some Pentagon is pushing right now. They're arguing for deployment of tactical nukes to the Pacific theater because they realize they have a problem beating China in its front yard in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea in a conventional battle because and countless games they scenarios they play out, U.S. end up losing. So now they're like, you know what, nukes is gonna tip the balance for us. We have tactical nukes. The thing is, you can never go just a little bit. You can't never do just a little bit nuclear war. Like their argument is, okay, we're using a tactical nuclear warhead, not a strategic nuclear warhead. So maybe China will not retaliate with a city buster. Look, I mean, when China sees that missile coming in, they're not gonna know. They're not gonna wait until the missile lands and the mushroom clouds goes up and let's see, that's a tactical nuke. So maybe we don't need to worry about so much. No, when they see that missile fly, all the missiles gonna come out in the air and get counter-strike. I mean, the people in Washington, they live in such a bubble. They really think like now we have papers on the Rand Corporation, for the Atlantic, like all these think tanks. Now they're talking about, you have even the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. They're saying we are adopting a more aggressive posture to stop the Chinese aggression, and we will make a hellscape in the Taiwan Strait for them by flooding it with thousands of unmanned drones and warships and unmanned warships and planes. I'm like, wait. Where are you gonna get those thousands of drones? All the manufacturing capacities in China. Okay, put that aside for a second. And he said, we maybe even could contemplate a direct strike on mainland China. Look. Under what scenario that a strike on mainland China, that China will refrain from a counter strike on the United States? Under what scenario? Like there's no way the Chinese just sit there and watch that missile come in. Look at the ballistic trajectory. Let's wait for the missile to land so we can gauge kind of the blast radius to decide how we're going to respond appropriately. No, that's not how it works. Once the detection of missile launch happened, it's Armageddon time. But we, again, these people are so out of touch. It's very dangerous. That the problem with the United States is a very ignorant country run by very ignorant elite. But these same elite are very violent people, and this is why it makes it a very dangerous situation for the whole world. And so, yeah, I'm done with my ranting. So I tend to go on these ranting sessions.
We love it. Hey, Dolan, I saw you about Bitcoin. I'll ask him the question about that when it's concerning China at the end of our conversation. I didn't ignore you. I saw you. The chat is jumping so fast on my computer. I just wanted to double back and thank you for watching. First of all, I want to address a couple issues. Then I want to play a clip about the EV, what you were talking about, the EV sanctions and all of this stuff. I want to go back to something. Once those missiles start flying, not only should America expect a retaliation from China, but they probably would have to expect one from Russia also, because according to U.S. military doctrine from the Cold War, they said if a nuclear war broke out between Russia and the United States, that the United States would nuke China too, because they would figure that China would be in a position of dominance after the nuclear war. So I'm pretty sure that the Russians are saying, if that was the doctrine concerning China, this has to be the doctrine concerning us also, so that once China's missiles start flying back at the United States, ours will start flying also. And on another note, when you were talking about the Apple, I wanted to address that. Go back to Apple for a second, and it's interesting because Perseverance Chameleon put something in the chat about this. He said, interestingly, that Indians seem to be experiencing the opposite from the Chinese. Many Indians seemingly fast track to CEOs in the U.S. Now, here's something that most people don't talk about, and it goes back to something that Carl said about how the United States says we can bring back these corporations and create jobs technologically. Well, we had a picture of that when they called themselves sanctioning China and moving some trial plants to India, which is supposed to be more advanced when it comes to tech than China, right? And they've realized that they had to shut the plants down and take the investment out and double down on their plants in China because they could not produce the product as efficiently and as technologically advanced as the Chinese were. And nobody talks about that. They just sweep that under the rug, and Carl and I know why they sweep it under the rug. But I just wanted to make notes of that and not let that go by, because I saw what Perseverance Chameleon says. Now back to you, Carl, on this EV and all of this stuff. I want to play a clip. This also comes from Global Times also, and it's talking about some of the technological changes. So here we are right here.
The Biden administration's announcement of the actions they plan to take against not only Chinese-made electric vehicles, but now Chinese-developed softwares to be used in connected vehicles on the public roads in the United States, including passenger cars, trucks, buses. In essence, this is a declaration of Cold War against Chinese technologies. And it also declares the digital iron curtain against Chinese technologies. I think this is happening at a time when there are indeed in the United States very few electric cars of any kind in the United States. So what is the US government afraid of? I think they are chasing after shadows. I think they are seized upon by their own nightmare, which is not real. They are suffering from their own version of hysteria. And this is exactly what a Cold War mentality is. You want to see enemies everywhere in all directions, and then you come up with excuses, for example, national security. Which country is threatening the national security interests of the United States? I think this kind of broad brush accusation to start with, and then condemnation, and then weaponization against a shadow enemy is the real dangerous thing in the world of today, because it means the US government is losing its own sanity, its own scientific base. Now, if the United States really wants to pick a fight against EV cars, they will lose this fight. Why? Because EV car is the megatrend. China is leading the world in EV car production, R&D, and all the related ecosystem. The Chinese technologies and the digital products, including EV, are safe, reliable, advanced. Fortunately, the United States is not the totality of the world, meaning there are other countries, other regions, for example, which are thrilled by such Chinese technologies. The rest of the world still has sanity, still have reason and independence to make their own judgment. Norway, for example, whose prime minister recently visited China, declared that it is not a member of the EU and it will not recognize the restrictions imposed by EU against Chinese EV cars. And therefore, the United States government should wake up from their own insanity and their own self-imposed hostility against the Chinese products, to really care about the fundamental interests of the American people, the American consumers. The sooner the United States gets its actions together and embrace EV car, the better. the longer they drag their feet, the more damage they will inflict on the automobile industry as a whole in the United States.
Before you address that, let me give a shout out to Dolan Duckett again on the chat for a $2 super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. And thank you more just for being here. Go ahead, Carl. Let you address it.
Well, U.S. and China are actually going in the total opposite direction in terms of EV revolution. China, since a couple months ago, the new car sales in China has been over 50% of the new cars sold in China are now EVs. Whereas U.S., there's a declining sales of EVs. There are many reasons for this. One is infrastructure. China, they built out infrastructure in anticipation of the EV revolution. They have more places where you can charge your EVs. Now they have stations where you don't have to sit for 20 minutes, 10 minutes to charge your car. They do battery swapping. So you go in, you're swapping a new battery, and then you drive off. And United States, I mean, like I'm sorry. Even, I know Elon Musk tweet out that, it's EV is the future, whatever. And I quote tweeted, I'm sorry, that's not the future for United States because U.S. doesn't have the infrastructure for it. U.S. doesn't have the power generation for it. I mean, to switch all the vehicles to EVs, that, how much more electricity your electric grid must support. If people just look at the power generation in the United States for the last 20 years, it's flat. It's essentially flat, whereas Chinese power generation is going up like this. And because China are all about adding capacity, and so they can support this EV transition comfortably. If United States, for whatever reason, American do decide to switch to EVs, sorry, there's not enough electricity for that, folks. Not only there's not enough charging station, even if they put in enough charging stations, there's not enough electricity for that. And this has a problem, with both electric production, because the American electric grid has been all privatized, and all these private companies, utility company, they're more interested in how to squeeze more money out of the existing infrastructure than building out new infrastructure. China is all about building. We see a lot of criticism in Wall Street Journal, etc., talking about why is China building out all these, taking a lot of debt to building out all this infrastructure, building all these high-speed trains. They're not making money on these high-speed trains. Look, it's not everything is about making money. Chinese love to make money as much as everybody else, but not everything is about making money. Like what high-speed train does, it facilitate travel, so encourage tourism, encourage people to move from place to place. It actually it creates an add-on effect in the economy. You get more cities get to kind of fuse together, create metro, ultra megatropolis. That it's an added. It's not just about nickel and diming how much the China rail company is making from passenger train. No, I mean, they don't make much. That's right. That's why in United States they hate passenger trains, because they make more money to have train to haul coal. Berkshire Hathaway, they own a lot of the train companies in United States, especially operating in the Western United States. And all those train companies they derive most of their profit from hauling coal. And that's how they make money. They don't care about passenger trains because they make pittance from passenger trains. So they all make trains to haul coal. Whereas China, they actually care about people, that people can have reliable public infrastructure, and they care about growth. So this is why they build out power plants. They have been adding power plants like crazy, and now they're also going big into sustainable energy development. They're adding like solar, and they're adding solar, wind, hydraulic, and nuclear, and and the amount of capacity China is at every year is more than some of the countries in the world. So this is why I say, Elon Musk, I'm sorry. Yes, EV is the future in China, but maybe not United States. US is not ready. US is not ready. We don't have the government for that. Our society is not set up for that. So it's going to be gas. So it's going to be internal combustion engine for a while. And this is people in the United States that don't realize China is taking off. They're really like living in the they're really living the future right now compared to the United States, whereas we're still living the 20th century. Another thing about like the comment about how a lot of the Indian CEO are getting fast track in the U.S. corporations. This is another sign that U.S. continue to brain drain from India, because this is because this top talent in India still find it more lucrative to come to United States rather than creating companies and be CEOs in India. And so this is actually not good for India. It's good. It's good for United States. It's able to brain drain from the rest of the world. But that's I think that eventually will reverse as India develops its own economy, as it already happened in China. Right now, U.S. is already experiencing finally a reverse brain drain back to China, because back in 1980s, when my dad was among the first generation of Chinese exchange students to come to U.S. after Cultural Revolution, I remember this because Deng Xiaoping said, I know most of them will not come back to China, but that's okay. Even if 20% of them do come back to China, that's a net gain for us. So this is why we should encourage it. And Deng Xiaoping was farsighted, to see this happen, because 20 years later, around 2000s, as Chinese own economy started to develop, a lot of these PhDs, people in top engineers who gained all this knowledge and experience working in multinationals in the West, and they saw the opportunity back in China and they went back. And now they're being forced back by U.S. government policies. But this is just gonna power China more ahead. And India, I think it's even in India, it's slowly happening, because I work in the tech industry, and around 2010s, I start seeing some of my Indian colleagues are starting to repatriate back to India. And so, I mean, I think that will happen as well. As United States continue to stagnate and become no longer like the magnet for attracting top talent from the world elsewhere, and as the BRICS country continue to develop, I think that will just happen naturally.
Mm-hmm. And this will be the last question on this subject, because I have two short clips I want to play on the Russian subject before we wrap this up, Carl. And people need to know Carl has to give him a little rest also. And we'll have him back on soon, so don't be mad at me. I look out for my friend. But I want to play something for you concerning Kamala Harris, okay? And this is her answer to America's view of the situation between China and its province, Chinese Taipei, or for the people who don't know, Taiwan. So listen. And this
the Chinese military has been doing drills around Taiwan, and Xi Jinping visited the province across from Taiwan. It's raising pressure, obviously, on Taiwan. What is your position? Were there to be an invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese military if you were president at the time?
Well, let me restate the point I've made many times. I believe in the one China policy, and I believe that Taiwan has the right to defend itself.
Would the American government provide arms for the Chinese defense?
How will you vote on the crime budget 36 proposition? I've not voted yet, and I've actually not read it yet. But I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's absolutely crazy. Listen, Carl, this is the mantra that is spewed. I was laughing. Both of us was laughing behind the scenes. This is the mantra that is spewed by all Western politicians, especially in the United States. On the one hand, they say, we believe in the one China policy. And then they'll say, we believe that Taiwan has the right to defend itself. Hold on. If Taiwan is believed to be a part of China and it is all one, then the sovereignty lies in Beijing and not in Taipei. And what if China took that view with Texas? And Texas used to be a sovereign nation, and it was once part of Mexico. What if the people who want to secede from the United States come to China, and China say, hey, we believe in the one U.S. policy, but we also believe that we have the right to supply the sovereignties in Texas because they have the right to defend themselves against U.S. aggression. How would the United States feel if that was put on them?
Or Hawaii, Kingdom of Hawaii was illegally occupied by United States, and so the thing is, this is kind of the double speak they always do. They will at one moment they will say we believe in a Palestinian state. The next sentence will say Israel has a right to defend itself, right? And this is the same double speak they always do. But but underneath all that, they're going to continue to sell weapons to Taiwan because Taiwan is one of the best customers for the U.S. military-industrial complex. And a lot of these weapons they sell are also crap because U.S. Pentagon, they are scared that if they sell top-of-the-line weapons to Taiwan, eventually when unification happens, those weapons will pass into the hands of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. So they only sell the secondhand, stripped down and useless crap to Taiwan for very high price. I mean, it's a whole grift, and a lot of people in Taiwan actually understand this. They see it as paying protection money, right? So we're saying paying protection money, so U.S. play nice with them. And Kamala, the best strategy for Kamala right now is actually to say as less as possible because it's like that saying. It's better to keep your mouth shut and make people think you're an idiot rather than open your mouth and confirm their suspicions. That's. I mean, we all know there's not much going on. Kamala is very good at social climbing that power ladder to the top, but. Anything else? I don't know, man. I just don't know. There's much up there. So for her, the best strategy till election is just like don't say much and just say, okay, I'm the alternative to Trump candidate. That's what the. Oh, have you seen that they try to Obama tried to shame black men into to vote for Kamala Harris? Yeah. Obama, you think. I'm still old enough to remember when you drink that tap water in Flint and tell everybody everything tastes fine. I mean, this guy is unbelievable, man. Now he's saying it's a black man's fault for not voting for Kamala Harris. It's amazing.
It's unreal that how they play that type of politics, And I often tell people who may, even some who are watching, instead of looking at him. Look at what he instituted as his policies. Look at this man. He instituted some of the most detrimental policies to Black America. And then you want to double back and say who they should vote for? Man, if you don't get you some wings and fly out of here, I don't know what to tell you. Let's go a little further. I want to give a shout out to Naeem88 for the $10 super chat. Salute and thank you so much. Now, I want to play something and I want your opinion on this, Carl. I'm going to let you have at it on this part right here. This is from a German opposition leader and what he had to say about the situation in Ukraine. So we've covered Africa, we've covered the Middle East, we've covered the Taiwan crisis, and I want to double back before we close on this Ukrainian Russian crisis that has been put together by the West. So I want you to listen to what he said, and well, you may not be able to understand it, but they're going to have the words at the bottom, and I just want to get your feedback on this lunatic and what he's saying.
Berlin is among the Western powers that have been holding out against further escalation of the Ukraine conflict. However, a German opposition leader is now demanding just that. He wants to give Kiev long-range missiles capable of reaching deep into Russia.
This cannot go on. If Putin does not accept this, then the next step must follow, and he must be told. If he does not stop bombing civilians in Ukraine within 24 hours, then Germany must send Taurus missiles to destroy the supply lines that this regime uses to harm civilians in Ukraine. It is time for us to overcome our fear of Putin so that we can finally stop the brutality in Ukraine together. In 2014, we already made a wrong assessment of the situation. In 2024, we must not make a wrong assessment again.
Moscow has not stayed silent. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman suggested German politicians might want to channel their efforts away from issuing ultimatums to Moscow and instead focus on cutting off arms supplies to Kiev. Alternative for Germany party member Gunnar Beck told us Berlin has already bitten off more than it can chew over the Ukraine conflict.
Germany is not only an economy in crisis, it is a country with a largely dysfunctional military. Germany is in no position, militarily or politically, to give Russia ultimatums. Sadly, I have to say that given Germany's history, I think it would be a wiser course of action if Germany took more of a back seat in this conflict. I think that's the right course of action. And in fact, that's the approach Germany is generally approaching in foreign policy. Germany is usually a very subservient actor, being mindful of its own history. In my view, rather too much so. But I think being involved in an active conflict to such an extent is rather new chapter in German foreign and military policy, and in my view, a very dangerous one. I think it's a mistake.
So what do you have to say on this when this guy's openly advocating for this? Do you think that he had some money tossed to him by the U.S. just so that they can put fillers out to see what Russia's reaction would be to this man calling for taking the training wheels off and striking deep into Russia with cruise missiles?
I mean, we know the European politicians are cut. They're all been compromised. All these guys, their path to power is they do not derive their legitimacy from popular support. They derive their legitimacy from how close they stick to the Washington's line. And you know, the other guy, you know, what he said, it's common sense. Given Germany's own history, what the hell are you doing trying to involve in this? This reminds me of all these NAFOs on Twitter. They're all so ecstatic, tweeting, "Oh, after 80 years, the German tanks are now again on the soils in Russia or Ukraine." It's like, we know you're a Nazi. You don't have to confirm it to us. You know, I know you guys like Nazis, but right now it's like again they're flailing because it's clear to everyone now the Ukraine war is not going well for NATO. That's why they're trying to escalate. I mean, by deploying longer range missiles to strike deep into Russia. Are you kidding me? We know it's not Ukrainian personnel who are operating those missiles because they don't have training for it. You will be Americans and Europeans operators who are firing those NATO missiles into Russia. That's a declaration of war. You know, it's just like those the admirals of U.S. Pacific Fleet thinking it's a it's even a good idea to strike mainland China. You think Russia will not respond if American or European operator pushing button on that missile that's going to hit in the vicinity of Moscow? That's delusional, man. I mean, like, they're really talking like World War III stuff. That's this thing you're gonna see. They're really hoping the Russian tanks to come back to Berlin at this point. Like this is because Russia actually has no interest to expand the war beyond Ukraine, unlike what all these NATO people are saying. The whole Russian operation was to make sure NATO do not become the bridgehead. Ukraine does not become bridgehead for NATO on the flank of Russia. Russia has no interest to strike, beyond Ukraine. But now they're pushing to escalate because they're losing. Again, it's like, okay, this is not working, so we'll do it even more. We'll escalate. That sure will turn the tide. No, you're crazy. You're gonna start a nuclear war. I mean, this is I mean, I just hope a lot of that is hot air, because this is incredibly dangerous. That's incredibly dangerous because they have already we're already seeing deployment, calling for deployment of this long-range missile, not just from U.S. politicians, not German politicians, because let's face it, German politicians, they don't make the shots. We're seeing the calls coming from Washington, but we also see the Biden administration is putting pouring cold water on that. So what I think is really happening is now it's two different factions of the same war party fighting in Washington. There's the people who more align with the military-industrial complex, who are more aligned with Hillary Clinton's faction. They are. Oh, by the way, did you see that Victoria Nuland? He's back in. She got a new job now, and like all these neocons are being brought back. So I think there's a power struggle between Hillary's people, and then you have the Pentagon and the CIA. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, we want to put squeezing on Russia, but we're not ready for World War III yet, right? I think there's that kind of dynamic going on. So again, we're gonna have to see. And the reason we have all this infighting in public is because Biden is a walking zombie, basically. Biden was the guy that was supposed to bring the coalition of the different factions of the Democratic Party together. But right now, Biden is a walking zombie. So that's why we see this public airing of these policy disagreements all coming out in the open. But I think I think as long as Pentagon does not go with that plan, I think we're still okay. We're still safe.
I also want to play something because I say this a lot, that America's policies, her domestic policies, mirror her international policies and vice versa. And I want to play a clip of something that took place. This is a short clip. This is a deaf man walking out of the store, and a black deaf man walking out of the store, and the police pulls up and they're trying to talk to him, and he's going because he's deaf. There's a white lady in the back. She's trying to take up for him and tell him, hey, the guy has some matter with him. They are telling her, you stay out of the way. They're disrespecting her as they're punching this guy in the back of the head. He still doesn't know what's going on. This is a short clip I want to play, and this just happened. So, and we see, and when we look at that, we can also see how the IDF does Palestinians in Palestine like that. So I want everybody to pay attention.
Hey, everybody, stop where you're at. Have a seat. Tase him. Get your hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. Your hands behind your back, asshole. Get your hands behind your back.
I'm here, babe. I'm here. I'm here. Look at me. Look at me. I'm here.
Over there on the sidewalk. Or you're going to go to jail. Over there on the sidewalk. Back up more.
I am backing up.
That's good.
Now here, the guy didn't steal anything. He was walking out of the building, and one guy asked, and I saw the whole a longer version, and they were talking to him, and he kept walking, and the police jumps out of his car, grabs this guy, and all of these other police just come out of nowhere. They throw this guy to the guy and punching him in the back of the head, and the lady is in the back trying to tell them, hey, look, he has a disability, and they are threatening her with jail. Now, isn't that the same of what you see going with the Palestinians in Palestine with the IDF?
I mean, U.S. law enforcement actually train with IDF regularly. They work like hand and gloves with the Israeli security establishment. Like I said, this is the same dog. This is the same animal. It's not like the tail wagging the dog. It's the same dog. The U.S. and Israel, this is one entity at this point. There's no difference. The guy's crime was walking while black, right? I mean, like we all know freaking U.S. police brutality. I personally have experienced this in San Pedro in Los Angeles. I was one night. This was back then, was dating a Mexican girl, so we're driving to her house, which is in a Latino neighborhood in San Pedro in California, and they stopped me because one of my tail light was out, and I was tapping. So I was waiting for him to check. I stopped. I gave my ID, the insurance paper, whatever. So he went back there to check my paper. So it was late at night. I was hungry. I was tired. I was waiting to go home. So I was tapping on the side of the car, because I was just kind of stress relief. He thought that was abnormal. He pulled a gun on me and tell me to get out of my car, and I actually complied. He did that. Before he did that, he actually called for backup. There was like 3 or 4 police cars come up. They asked me to step on my cars. They handcuffed me, put my hands behind my back, put my face on my top of my trunk, and then they searched me for weapons and for drugs and stuff. I don't do drugs. I don't drink, and so in that it was a stopover for a tail light problem, and the only thing I did, the justification is me tapping my hands on the side of my car door. He said that was abnormal. Is abnormal. So they called backup on me, pulling gun on me, tell me to get out of my car. This is kind of shit that this is the kind of shit the LAPD does. It's just that the sad part is people in the United States just accept that. They just like, oh, that's just the way it is. That's how the police act. And they say U.S. is the freest country in the world, land of the free, right? When you can't fucking lightly tap on your side of your own car without getting with guns pulled on you, and this is when people say, "Oh, China is not free," and whatever. You know what? In China, you can walk out in any street, open a can of beer, drinking in public, no problem. You can't even do that in any U.S. cities. And you can't tell me U.S. is more freer than China when you can't just even open a can of beer on the sidewalk in public. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Now, in closing, I promised one of our viewers and one of our channel members, Dolan Duckett, that he had some questions about Bitcoin. And what are your thoughts on Bitcoin, and what are your thoughts on Bitcoin in China also?
Well, Warren Buffett once says, stay in your own circle of competence. So I know where my circle of competence is. You know, if you want me to talk about China, I can talk everything about China. Bitcoin, that's outside of my circle of competence, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, everybody, you got your answers. My friend, my guy, Carl joined us. We're going to have him back on the platform again, but he has to rest. I mean, this man is recuperating, and he gave us 2 hours. 2 hours. So, Carl, man, I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That was fun, Rasheed. Anytime.
All right. Hey, be safe. Send your family my love. Hey, man, and change those diapers.
Oh, you reminded me. I got to go. Bye, guys.
Everybody, listen. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Red Pill Diaries on Saturday, our Saturday edition. I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart who spent 2 hours with us. If you only spent a few minutes, thank you, because you didn't have to do that. And so I want to just show my appreciation and tell you thank you. Thank you for joining me on all of the platforms. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I want to take the special time out to thank all of those who gave a few of their bucks, their hard-earned dollars or whatever to the show. Thank you. We cannot do this. We cannot keep this going without your generosity. From the bottom of my heart to the depth of my soul, thank you. I want to let you know that it is very much appreciated. I'll take my glasses off and look you in your eyes and say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Everybody, thank you. And know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And remember this thing right here, to do right by others, not because other people are watching, or not even because it may bring about blessings, but do it because it's the right thing to do. Because it is the right thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching, God Almighty has his eyes set in all different places. Hey, mama, look at me. Your baby boy still loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you. We're out of here. Peace.